This is Superior Court Judge Thomas Daniel McCluskey. Today is Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. We're now in the record in the matter of the application of the Middlesex County Board of Elections for early opening of voting machines used in the November 2nd, 2021 general election in the County of Middlesex, docket number MID-L-6561-21. And may I have the appearance of counsel for the record, please?
Yes, Your Honor. This is D.A. Gear, agreed on behalf of the Middlesex County Board of Elections.
Okay, good morning, counsel. Just before we get started, a couple of housekeeping measures. First of all, as is protocol, we are conducting this proceeding in the court's virtual courtroom on the Zoom platform, although I am on the bench in my actual courtroom, and counsel is appearing remotely. With that said, we are on the record, and I would appreciate, counsel, that if and as you're addressing the court or called upon by the court, you just repeat your name and party represented for clarity of the record. Secondly, I need to confirm that as you've entered your appearance, you're not making any unauthorized recording or reproduction of this proceeding. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. This matter comes before the court on the return date in order to show cause that the court entered on Monday, November 15th, 2021, on the application that had been made by the Attorney General through Deputy Attorney General Eric A. Reed on behalf of the petitioner, the Middlesex County Board of Elections, seeking certain relief, and having at that time on Monday conducted an initial hearing on the application and being satisfied from the moving papers and the verified complaint and affidavit it submitted that this matter could proceed in a summary manner, and therefore entered my order to show cause on November 15th, 2021, and directing that any party in interest would be entitled to appear before the court either in person or by way of filing with the court on an accelerated basis, given the urgency and the timelines extant for action to be taken by the Board of Elections as a consequence of the November 2nd, 2021 election. And in my order to show cause, I entered the order and directed that anyone of interest, a party of interest, would have opportunity to appear and to demonstrate, or at least argue to the court as to why judgment should not be entered by the court, ordering and directing that first, that the Middlesex County Board of Elections be permitted to open on today, November 17th, 2021, at or before 12 noon, the voting machines used in the November 2nd, 2021 general election in the County of Middlesex for the sole purpose of retrieving and securing the voted emergency ballots. Secondly, as to why a judgment should not be entered, ordering and directing that a bipartisan team from the board's office supervise the opening and resealing of specific voting machines and the retrieval of any emergency ballots. And third, as to why the judgment should not be entered, ordering and directing that the voting machines to be opened and checked were specifically numbered as set forth in the order, and by my count, some 101 voting machines of the 558 voting machines that were utilized by the Board of Elections in the general election just passed. My order to show cause further directed that a copy of the order and all moving papers be served upon any party in interest, and that the order to show cause would serve as process in lieu of a summons pursuant to Rule 4:67-3, and in which order directed that I would be hearing this as a final matter today at this proceeding, and accorded the opportunity for any party in interest to oppose the order to show cause to appear here on the return date to oppose the order, or by no later than 3 p.m. yesterday, Tuesday, November 16, 2021, to file any opposition papers with the Clerk of the Superior Court in Middlesex County, and that copies of any opposition papers be sent directly to chambers. It was also directed in the order to show cause, if no party in interest opposed the entry of the proposed order, nor filed and served any opposition to the order to show cause, that the application would be decided on the papers as unopposed on this, the return date, and the relief might be granted by default. Now, the order also provided that the petitioner, the Board of Elections, had to provide the court with its proof of service of the pleadings and the order to show cause on all parties in interest no later than 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 15th. And the court has, in fact, received the certification of service from Deputy Attorney General Reed, verifying that on November 15th, pursuant to the order, that service of the order and the relevant pleadings was served by way of email to all candidates who are on the ballots in Middlesex County. And because not all voting machines would be open, only the candidates for the offices of interested parties were to be served, and with a copy of the signed order to show cause, the verified complaint, and the proposed final order. And that included, and the court is satisfied that service of the order to show cause and the moving papers has been served upon, as directed by the order, candidates for governor, candidates for state senator in districts 12, 17, 18, and 19, candidates for assembly for districts 12, 17, 18, and 19, candidates for county surrogate, candidates for county commissioner, a 3-year term, candidates for county commissioner, 1-year unexpired term, candidates for local office in the municipalities of East Brunswick, Metuchen, Old Bridge, Piscataway, and Sayreville, and finally candidates for a local school board in East Brunswick, Metuchen, Old Bridge, Piscataway, and Sayreville. As indicated and as directed by the order to show cause, counsel has provided to the court's satisfaction a certification of service, and as of 3 o'clock yesterday, November 16th, the court was in receipt of no written opposition from any of the served interested parties, nor has anyone who had been served and considered to be affected or deemed to be an interested party on this application appeared here in court. And accordingly, the court is prepared to rule on the application that had been submitted. And before I do so, Mr. Reed, is there anything you'd like to add in supplement of the application?
Sure, Your Honor. I should also mention that we served on the Middlesex County Republican Democrat chairs a copy of the filed papers, just because they generally have a quicker avenue to these parties. We haven't heard anything. No one raised any issues. However, they've reached out and asked if more people can attend this, and we're in the process of dealing with that right now. So no issues on our end. I just wanted to mention that we took an extra step and made sure that the Republican and Democrat county chairs have it, and they're well aware of it. We're just trying to set up a way to have both parties there to observe the process.
Now, you're talking about the actual process of the opening of the voting machines.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
So we'll have a bipartisan team as the order says, but more Republican and Democrat members want to be there just to observe the process. So we're in the process of figuring that out.
Okay. Very well then. I also should add that service was made of the order to show cause and the moving papers upon the county clerk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So by way of background, unless there's anything further, Mr. Reed?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So by way of background and for the purposes of the record, as I indicated, this matter came before the court on an application for an order to show cause. Frankly, over the weekend, given the urgency of the statutory deadlines confronting the Middlesex County Clerk, but nonetheless, the court entertained the application and conducted a hearing on Monday, November 15th. And the hearing was conducted predicated upon the verified complaint that was filed on behalf of the Middlesex County Board of Elections, which is certified and verified by way of affidavit by one Daniel Frankel, who has indicated and verified that he serves as the Commissioner of Registration for the Middlesex County Board of Elections. and serves by statute as the custodian of the 558 voting machines that were used by the County of Middlesex here in the state of New Jersey during the November 2nd, 2021 general election. And as was indicated in the verified complaint, it appeared that during the course of Election Day on November 2nd, 2021, emergency ballots were used, and some may have been left in the back of the voting machines. And these emergency ballots must be retrieved in order for them to be reviewed and canvassed. And the specific locations of the voting machines were first in East Brunswick at the Senior Center, and the specified voting machines in the application. Also in Metuchen, at the Campbell Elementary School, at the designated voting machines. In the borough of Sayreville, at the Eisenhower Elementary School, and the designated voting machines. In the city of New Brunswick at all locations, and all the voting machines were specified. In the borough of Old Bridge, all locations also with the voting machines specified. And in the borough of Piscataway, the township of Piscataway, in all locations and with the voting machines specified. After the close of the polls on Election Day, as was verified by the affiant, Mr. Frankel, the voting machines containing emergency ballots were transported to and secured at the Board of Elections warehouse, where they have since remained impounded. Now, pursuant to NJSA 19:52-6, the statute requires that upon the completion of the count at the end of Election Day, the district board was to lock the counter compartments of the voting machines, and they were to remain locked and impounded for a period of 15 days, quote, except if to be opened by order of the judge of the Superior Court assigned to the county, close quote. And that's directly quoting from the statute. And as the verified complaint alleged, the board was required to open the voting machines in order to retrieve the voted emergency ballots. And in the absence of a court order, the board would not be able to open the voting machines to retrieve the emergency ballots. Now, I may pause to note that in the general election of November 2nd, 2021, just passed, for the first time in New Jersey's history, and pursuant to the Early Voting Rights Act that had been enacted by the legislature back in the late spring, a early voting period was permitted in this general election for the period of October 23rd, 2021 through October 31st of 2021 at designated early voting polling locations in all municipalities in every county of the state. And on November 1st, early polling was concluded, and early voting machines at early voting locations were impounded, and then the general election was conducted by way of in-person voting as in the normal course, and or by mail-in ballot or provisional ballot on Election Day, November 2nd, 2021. And generally speaking, there are three forms of ballots in voting an election. Those are those that are cast by voters at the polling locations, but also mail-in ballots, which once the election was concluded and the results tabulated from the voting machines, the Board of Elections had the responsibility to then undertake the count and canvass the mail-in ballots, followed by the provisional ballots, which is a second form of ballot, and the third form are emergency ballots. Now, emergency ballots are required by statute to be provided in a pre-printed form at polling locations to enable a voter to vote if and as, for example, there's some malfunction in the voting machines that delays their ability to vote, and to the end that there would be such a malfunction, voters would be granted the opportunity to complete an emergency ballot, and the poll workers instructed to take the emergency ballots and place them in a secure counter compartment of the voting machines, which hence have since been impounded. Mr. Reed, my understanding was that the emergency ballots in the designated locations may have been completed because of some connectivity issues that arose with respect to the machines in each of those municipal locations. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, this is DA Eric Reed. Yes, that's exactly correct. There was a lot going on, as Your Honor noticed. A lot of new technologies were being rolled out, and there were a lot of connectivity issues. And so to keep the lines moving and to make sure the voters were able to vote in a timely manner, they issued emergency ballots. And I think there was just a bit of a miscommunication on behalf of the poll workers as to between the poll workers and the Board of Elections as to what exactly they should do with it. And so some of them put the emergency ballots in the back of the voting machines in order to secure them.
Okay, and actually the statute, NJSA 19:52-6, provides, and I'm quoting, quote, "The district election officer shall, as soon as the count is completed and fully ascertained, as by this subtitle required, lock the counter compartment, and it shall remain for a period of 15 days, except it be opened by order of a judge of the Superior Court assigned to the county," close quote. Now that 15-day period in which the voting machines have since Election Day been impounded by the Early Voting Act was actually extended by 2 days, which results in a deadline of this coming Friday, November 19th, 2021, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes, and therefore the Board of Elections is in need of opening the counter compartments in the voting machines to retrieve the emergency ballots that may have been placed in those machines, and therefore complete the counting and canvassing of all ballots for the general election in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. These are fully voted ballots, and we don't want to disenfranchise any voters.
Okay, understood, exactly. Okay. Hence the urgency of this application and the setting of this short return date for today, and certainly in the interest of providing all of the affected candidates in the municipalities that have been identified the opportunity to be heard on it, and accepting your representations as to contacts you have had with the representatives of each of the political parties, the Democratic and Republican parties, to facilitate the bipartisan teams who will undertake to observe the unsealing of the voting machines and the collection of the emergency ballots. And having had no opposition filed, as instructed and directed by my order to show cause, I am satisfied under the circumstances that irreparable harm would befall the electoral process here if a relief isn't granted as sought here under the statute. The rights are certainly well settled as a matter of law for the Board of Election pursuant to the statute. And as I indicated when I signed the order to show cause on November 15th, based upon what was before the court and supplemented here, I was satisfied then and continue to be satisfied now. There was a reasonable probability of success on the merits of the application, which I so find. And in balancing the hardships and the equities to the interested parties, clearly the harm to the electoral process far outweighs any detriment that would befall any interested or affected party, but provision is being made to allow for, as the application sought, bipartisan participation in the observation of the opening of the machines and the collection of the emergency ballots. Accordingly, for each of those reasons, and being satisfied that the factors to grant the emergency relief have been satisfied by the applicant, the petitioner, the Middlesex County Board of Elections, and having no opposition presented from any of the affected parties or parties in interest who have been duly noticed, I will enter an order and judgment that will specifically provide as follows: that the petitioner of the Middlesex County Board of Elections will be permitted and authorized to open in the presence of a bipartisan team from the Board of Elections office on this day, November 17, 2021, at and after 12 p.m., the voting machines used in the November 2nd, 2021 general election in the County of Middlesex for the sole purpose of retrieving and securing the emergency ballots. And my order will also provide specific reference to each of those numbered voting machines in each of the municipalities that I've previously indicated where those voting machines to be retrieved, or I should say unsealed, and the compartments unsealed to allow for the collection of the emergency ballots were in the Township of East Brunswick, the Borough of Metuchen, the Borough of Sayreville, the City of New Brunswick, the Township of Old Bridge, and the Township of Piscataway, as enumerated in the order to show cause, which will be repeated in the final order for judgment that the court will enter. Finally, my order that I will issue forthwith will further direct that immediately after retrieving the emergency ballots, the Middlesex County Board of Elections shall, in the presence of a bipartisan team for the Board of Elections office, close and reseal the voting machines, and thereafter undertake to canvass and count the emergency ballots to complete the canvassing process for the November 2nd, 2021 election. With that said, I will promptly prepare and upload my order to the case jacket, Mr. Reed, and a PDF copy of the same will be emailed to you by my chamber staff. Is there anything further?
No, Your Honor. I just apologize for the technology issues, and thank you very much for doing this so quickly.
Okay, very well. With that said, that will now close the hearing, and we'll now go off the record.